From Denver's Auraria campus to Columbia University, students are parking themselves on college campuses, protesting for Palestinian human rights impacted by the Israel-Hamas war.
We haven't seen protests of this magnitude in the U.S. around a war since the invasion of Iraq in 2003.
Michael English with CU Boulder says student protests on civil rights, the Vietnam War, and Occupy Wall Street have filled college campuses for decades. English says students are active, they're educated, and they're willing to push back on big issues.
I think if you look back at the 1960s, there are certainly a lot of parallels in terms of the frustration young people are feeling at the slow pace of change.
But many Americans haven't always supported students exercising that constitutional right.
It was not something that was celebrated all across the board, right? Even the tragedy at Kent State, there were plenty of people who uttered things that were not what we would think of as appropriate to what happened to those poor kids at Kent State.
Well, protests have evolved, shifting away from taking over buildings and large-scale sit-ins. The way universities and police respond has changed too. In the 80s and 90s, English says police traded riot gear for their uniforms, engaging more with protesters. Now, arrests at protests are common once again.
The sights of police on college campuses in riot gear is very reminiscent of that time. And so we seem to have lost a little bit of the knowledge we gained from the 1960s and 70s that perhaps a policing first response isn't the most appropriate way to deal with peaceful protest.
English says while an institution's response can inflame tensions or reduce them, he says protesters have proved over the decades that utilizing this constitutional right can help spark a dialogue, even change.
And this history of protest is part of our democratic system.
English says he's paying close attention to these protests happening on campuses all around the country, in part because a lot of these students are going to want to have their say on this issue during the November election, too. Reporting live in Denver, Rachel Krause, 9 News.